Hi, I'm Jim Benson from Modus Cooperandi and Modus Institute. And about a week ago, I had a really wonderful evening with the people in Lincoln, Nebraska at Agile Lincoln. I had a nice group of about 50 people that showed up and gave a quick presentation about visual management and collaborative management. And then we had a lean coffee where we had Q&A. And it worked really well. It was the first time a lot of people had been to a lean coffee. So if you don't know what one is, you go into a meeting. People are given post-it notes. They write down anything that they want to talk about either the topic of the meeting or just stuff in general. And then people vote on what the room wants to talk about. What are those most important things that are raised, and then you talk about them in order. It's that simple. But what it does is it creates a meeting where everyone has ownership of the agenda for the meeting. People tend to participate more, they ask more questions, they give more opinions, breaks down social barriers, diffuses politics. It's a simple but amazingly powerful tool. So we used a lean coffee table for this, and we had these questions left over. I promised them that I would get to them, so I'm gonna nuke those as quickly as I can. Trying to do 5 minutes or less per topic. And the first one here is, do you ever prioritize low voted topics? And then what do you do if something important shows up? This one here shows up and it doesn't have, it doesn't have a lot of votes. So usually if this shows up and it doesn't have a lot of votes, there's some reason why people aren't voting for it. And that reason could be politics, kind of a hot potato, don't want to touch it. It could just be that it's a really deep topic. So people look at it and they're, oh man, if we pull that, we're going to be talking forever. So it could well be two things. Like one, you could just say, hey, this looks kind of important to me. Does anybody want to, push it up the level of priority? And sometimes when I do that, people are like, oh, I didn't read that right, but you're right, that's really important. And then more people will vote for it. If it looks like it's that way because it's a complex problem, like people are saying, it's going to take too long to talk about, then just schedule a separate meeting for this. And then people come and then they have this meeting or this ticket, and then you're going to do a lean coffee, and then they're going to put a bunch of topics about this because that's what this warrants, because it's that deep, it's that complex. So make sure that if you see those, that they're shown the respect that they deserve, and you come up with another mechanism for doing it. So in this case, the other mechanism was we answered these. You can see we had some, actual comments in the tickets. So good conversation, but we only had enough time to get to these first three. So this video. All right, so number 2. Are you using the lean coffee approach with clients, basically? And have you transferred to this, transitioned to this in it entirely? So there's nothing in my life that I do entirely. Some days I will play this keyboard, some days I will play the bass, some days I'll be writing a book. There's nothing that I do entirely. But what I will say is that every client we've ever had, even if it's just for a day, after we leave, they will do lean coffees either exclusively or from time to time. And the importance of the tool is just immediately apparent to people, which is even just in the Q&A stage, before we'd even voted, that was why that question was there, is that it's weird because we invented this because it was just necessary. We had a need to have a meeting that was democratically generated but still had a structure. It wasn't just like a bunch of people talking, which is why everyone hates meetings. Is you get there, everyone goes blah blah blah, and then they leave and nothing comes out of that meeting. In this, what you do is, you go through the meeting, you can type up notes, but then over here you have different actions. So the action for this one might have been action, make video for remaining questions. Actually, that should have been there anyway. So apparently I haven't transitioned this entirely. But at the end of any meeting, you want to have things that you learn and things that you're going to do. And sometimes you're going to have more than one, or sometimes you're going to have more of the other. But the important thing is to have product for the meeting and not just go and go blah, 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 and then everybody leaves. That's you can't do that for too long before you're like, you're wasting my time. And that is one thing that we just don't have in abundance. We've only got so much time. We need to respect the time of ourselves and others. And that's why Lean Coffee. So yes, clients using it. No, haven't transitioned to it entirely, but boy, we sure use it a lot. In fact, I can't go back because I would be violating a million different NDAs. But if you look at just in Lean Coffee Table, I think I now have over 400 lean coffees that we've done just using this tool since COVID started. So how would you address only answering the most valuable questions in a meeting with external stakeholders and still answering the meeting on time? So time boxing is the enemy of value creation and provision. So if you're ever time boxing anything, so even like right now, I set these questions to be 5 minutes long because I think it's going to take me about 2.5 minutes to answer the average question. I always try and provide myself with at least twice as much time as I feel that I'm going to need because of something called Conway's law, Hofstadter's law. And Hofstadter's law says human beings will underestimate any complex task even if they are aware of Hofstadter's law. So even though I think that I'm going to do these in 2.5 minutes, giving myself only 2.5 minutes is ensuring failure, right? So when you get into a meeting and you have external stakeholders and their time is super valuable, then you're going to have to facilitate that meeting. You're going to have to say, all right, you know what? We're going to get together for X amount of time, let's say 90 minutes. We have 10 minutes at the beginning for pleasantries and for people to say, that link doesn't work for me and all that kind of stuff. Then we're going to have 10 more minutes for people to input things into the Lean Coffee board. Then we're going to have 5 minutes to vote. So we've used up 25 of our 90 minutes. We know that we're going to have 5 minutes of weird. So we have an hour left now. So we want to make sure that the value that we're going to be provided is something that we're really sure we can deliver in a half an hour. And if we don't, then we know that we're going to have to rush some things, right? Anything over that kind of 50% mark, you're going to have to rush something somewhere, or you're going to do that horrible thing where you talk right to the end of the meeting and then you leave. And you always want that buffer at the end, that 5 minutes or so that you can go over these things and make sure that people are completely aware that there was value provided in that particular meeting. So let's say, for example, that my meeting was with Agile Lincoln, and the most important things to get through were, say, through number 9, 3 votes or more, and we didn't make it. Damn. So then you have to do something crazy like have an idea about how you're still going to provide that value. So in this case, it was I'm still going to provide that value by making an ancillary video. Okay. If you can't do those types of things, or the conversation is important, then you might say, okay, when we click this sucker and it says that we have 5 or 10 minutes, we can only discuss this for 5 or 10 minutes. Or you can make a decision up front saying, all right, we are all here. We are all professionals. We need to discuss through 9. If we're not going to make it through 9, can we agree at the beginning of this meeting that we're going to meet again and handle the rest of these, because these are important and we don't want to rush them. So any team that has ever dealt with any type of deadline or sprint goal knows that the more that you cram into a time box, the more likely you are to be dissatisfied with the result, right? So we have to have a little bit of responsibility, a little bit of professionalism, and understand that the things that we can discuss in a finite amount of time have to fit in that finite amount of time. And if they don't, we either discard them, we augment them, or we do it later. And I finished that within my 5 minutes because I can't look wrong on video. So what about teams using Zoom to replace co-located collaboration? Are you saying that just doesn't work, or how do you make Zoom not feel like a meeting? So one of the things that we talked about was the Zoom fatigue that's happening now, because everybody is always doing what you're doing right now, which is looking at a screen that is this far away or less from your face. And in real meetings, in real life, you tend to do things like this. You know, you look out the window, you spin around in your chair, you might, get up and just kind of walk around the room, because you're a human being, right? Human beings need to move. They need their blood to pump through their veins. You need to do stuff. And when we're Zooming, we aren't Zooming. We're puttering. We're just sitting here. And what's even weirder is we're building this really weird social dynamic where in order to pay attention to somebody, you have to look just slightly to their left or slightly above them or slightly below them so that they feel like you're making eye contact. And that just gets old. So we've been doing some amazing collaborations. We've done a bunch of different value stream mapping exercises with people. We've done all sorts of classes and activities. We've done, just stuff. We've continued to work during COVID, and it's been very successful. But we have to be very careful with people. So when we work with a group in Germany, and we had a bunch of different 4-hour blocks where we were working together on these very intense things. And so what we had to do was do 4-hour blocks where we would work for 50 minutes and we'd take a 10-minute break, 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, 50 minutes, take every hour, take a 10-minute break. And in the past, that would have been weird. But part of the reason that would have been weird was because when we're in a room and we're all working on stuff and we've got Post-it notes on the wall or whatever, people have no problems. Again, they're already standing up, putting up the Post-it notes. But they also have no problems going to the bathroom. Right? So the breaks aren't necessary because they happen naturally. And in a Zoom world, which is awesome, my God, what would happen if we didn't have it? All the economies would have died instantly. But we have to be very, very we have to be very aware that that the people that we're collaborating with, we're all getting eye strain by just focusing in the same depth to 2D plane of existence. We deserve more. We need more. So yes, Zoom is awesome at the moment. It's what we've got. There are things that we can do that we could never do before. For example, we can do whole value stream mapping exercises in Miro. And that's gorgeous, and they stay there. The Post-it notes don't fall off the wall, other people don't come in the room and rub up against the wall and then leave with half your Post-it notes stuck to their butts. But at the same time, we're not getting the real human interaction, and that's tough, and we need it. So watch out for those things. Care for each other. Make sure you have enough breaks, and then go do cool stuff. All right. So, how to best bring new team members in a virtual world with a culture of in person. My God. So, in the most business runs on a tacit understanding of what's going on and a tolerance for people slowly feeling their way around the cultural landmines that are in any company. That's harder remotely. We don't get a lot of body language. We don't get constant visual, audio, audible, olfactory feedback from how people are feeling and how they're doing. So when I'm sitting here, obviously on camera, you you have a pretty good idea, more or less, how I'm feeling, or at least how I'm presenting. When we're at work in a co-located place, like how we've worked for the previous, I don't know, 2 millennia, we see other people. We see their moods. We see them in real time constantly. Now, when we hang up, we just see that. Well, actually, we see that. There we go. You see this. Should have worked. It was black. But either way, we see nothing. We don't see them at all. So we don't know from moment to moment how they're feeling or how they're acting. So now you can just, shut off the camera, and then you're like, and no one knows. But if we're in a meeting and I go and I sit at my desk and I'm like typing really hard, other people can hear that and they know what's going on, and they learn, new people learn about the culture that way. They know what's easily fixed. They know what they should talk about, what they shouldn't talk about, and blah, 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 blah. Now what would happen is new person would just say completely political incendiary thing and people would be quiet for a few seconds, but because it's Zoom, it only lasts a few seconds and someone will come in and save the day, because a pause in Zoom is almost instantly noticeable as awkward. In real life, that was nothing. That was just like a... But in Zoom, like every second counts. So how to bring in a new person? The ways that we do it are we create a collaborative system. We build a visual control that shows all the work that is in progress, where that work is, where it's stuck, where it's complex, where people need help, where there is a need for interaction with a stakeholder or a customer. The collaborative framework of that particular work, the actual work, not just workflow, not just like trying to get stickies from left to right, but actually understanding the culture of the group by what's on this visual control. So it is our proxy for the office. We make sure that new people pair or have other collaborative opportunities so that they can work with others closely and kind of feel the flow of work. We make sure that cultural artifacts like the team charter or like a communications plan or things like that are visible, and that when new people are coming on, the team talks about that, not just with them, but with each other. So when a new person comes in, you say, okay, well, now that this new person is in, we're going to take this opportunity to spend 15 or 20 minutes to kind of update the team charter. And in that update, they learn more than they ever could out of a report out. So you create collaborative opportunities for new people to actually experience the work and the team doing the work. Come on, you. All right. So, 5. This is just like lightning talks all day long. Okay, so can you show a longer value stream board like the one you mentioned? So, when people look at personal Kanban, the format of options, doing, and done, weirdly enough, has been somehow transformed into the assumption that that is what an appropriate value stream is. Even though we spend about 200 pages in this book showing people how to build other value streams. Drives me crazy. So I was telling the group that, like at Turner Construction in New York, when we did a value stream and a big personal Kanban for their procurement process, which is like buying everything for $1 billion construction site, which is like literally buying everything from toilet paper rolls to structural steel to scheduling plumbers. And obviously very large purchases that have to be made in a very short period of time in a very systematic way that generally falls apart because there's just too many moving parts. So their initial value stream for that was like 26 columns long. Then that was shrunk down maybe to 8 or so, and then they continued to manipulate that. So yes, I will show a quick value stream here, which is how we make our courses at Modus Institute. So at Modus Institute, we have the units that we are going to work on. So this is for Tony Ann's upcoming behavioral economics, psychology of work class. So she has her set way of working. She creates an outline, script, image, blah, 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 blah. And then as she does those things, these things move through here. And oops, I don't want to screw that up for her. And then internally in the tickets themselves, there are different comments. And as you can see here, there's a bunch of stuff in done and whatnot because we've used this many times over by now. But another thing to note is that there's this other belief that when you build a value stream or you put up a board, all of a sudden all your free will is transferred to the board. And as a professional, no, don't do that. As a professional, you want to be able to actually be one. So in this case, Tony Ann might pull, we'll just say, let's see, what's one thing that like she could just like sit down and talk about? So flow. So Tony Ann, like literally, if you just pushed her button, she would like be like, okay, and she would just go. And so she might not make a script for that. And she might not even create slides. She might go straight into just filming it. And then later on, either she or somebody else might create some graphics around what she says. But by and large, this is the way that work flows. So there will be exceptions. Different things will happen. So, in knowledge work, it's very hard to come up with strict 100% of the time standardization. We're not Toyota building a car where our job is to shave a tenth of a second off of, doing a piece of paperwork. But what we are trying to do is make sure that we understand how our work almost always flows, so that when it is flowing the way it almost always flows, it requires absolutely no managerial attention by us or anyone else. Then, when the weird one shows up that might skip some of these things, Then we talk about those things. We talk about the exceptions. We talk about the things that don't flow normally. And we don't try, we might try and make them go away if they're annoying. Like, this isn't flowing, this isn't going this way because we have this problem. But if it's like this one where it's not flowing this way because the work itself actually requires a different approach, we want to understand and we want to respect that. That's really important, right? We want those longer value streams to help us get our work done, but we don't want to make them our taskmasters. Next question. How can you keep all teams on a large project interested in attending meetings? Well, I'd start by saying we have zero tolerance for status meetings. So if you're ever in a meeting and it seems like a status meeting, ask yourself how you can automate it, how you can get that information out in a different way, how you can change the conversation to still supply status information, but actually make a decision or move the ball forward on something. Seriously? So if you are currently having a huddle or a stand-up meeting where you're getting together and you're saying, here's the tasks I did yesterday, this is what I'm going to do today, and whether you have any blockers, that's terrible. Don't do that. Okay? The Kanban board or something else should be able to tell you that. If you can't go 24 hours without completely and if you can't go 24 hours and not keep track of what your team members are doing, then something is wrong, right? You should absolutely have a daily huddle or a daily stand-up, but that should be used for tactics. We see on the board what everybody is going to do, and we know what they're about to do. Are there adjustments that we want to make? Like, some of the most important adjustments are things like, hey Alan, I see that you're about to pull this ticket. I think that I should help you with that. Like, even if it's only for 10 minutes. Let's get together. I will tell you some things that I learned last week that will save you some time. Or I have concerns about the implementation of this, so I would just like to get together and talk to you about what those concerns are, so I make sure that you don't miss any of those nuances or hidden gotchas that might come up and turn that 10-minute task into a 2-hour task. Or worse yet, you work on it for 10 minutes, finish it, and then those gotchas happen later on. So that requires something that a lot of teams don't do. Attention. Paying attention to other people. It's not additional work. It's what you're supposed to be doing. So, imagine for a moment that, you're in a band and you're going to play a song and you're really annoyed because you have to listen to the rhythm that the drummer and the bass player are laying down. It's like, why can't I just play my guitar and sing how I want? We'll integrate it later. That's not how work works. Even if you feel like you're working alone, you are collaborating. People become disinterested in meetings because they feel like they're working alone, and meetings are an interruption to that very important work that they're doing by themselves, which is somewhere between hooey and bullshit. Maybe more on this side, right? So we want to be professional. And professionals pay attention to what's going on. They pay attention to each other, and they meet more often. And they're interested in those meetings because they have outcomes. Stuff happens that's valuable. Okay. If people aren't interested in meetings, it's because your meetings suck. They have strong agendas. You don't have food in the room. Or it's their 15th, Zoom meeting in a row in one day and they haven't had a break. Treat these humans like humans and they will adore your meetings. Treat these humans like objects that come to your meetings and they're going to act like objects that come to your meetings. Okay. Almost to the end. Choose Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, or other. Why? Zoom, because it doesn't break, but people generally don't have a choice. I don't think anybody's really out there that's like, yes, awesome, Microsoft Teams. No, but nobody. Especially if you're external to an organization, like getting into a Skype for business call is an utter nightmare. So Zoom works. We use Zoom, but ultimately, people are just going to use whatever they're told to, and there you go. This is a nice short one. Okay, so this is the one I was waiting for. Love talking about Gray Hill. So Gray Hill was my software company from the turn of the century through 2009. We made software for government. We were a highly collaborative shop. We had an extremely good track record for quality software, quality product, fast delivery. And it was also one of the two places where Kanban was born. So David Anderson and Microsoft and me and William Rowden at Gray Hill. Did we represent strategic things on the wall as well as tactical? Yes. So while the work being done at Microsoft was very focused on like just straight up software development tactics, we had to be focused all the time on what our customer needs were, because our customers were all government agencies and they were all very finicky. So we always had to be looking at what our sales pipeline was as a group. We had to be worried about what our quality of service was, both in terms of quality software, but also in quality customer satisfaction. We were always looking at what our workload was, what our capacity was. We were always looking at what the market was, because we were a service-based business, but in the course of that, we developed 5 or 6 products. And so we were always watching what the urban forestry community was doing, what the transportation community was doing, et cetera, so that we could both make sales and make better solutions for our teams. We as a team, as an entire company, went over strategic and tactical things. I am a huge proponent of the company, of the collective wisdom of the company guiding vision, strategy, and tactics. And as an owner of the company, and as someone who is, I guess you might call me an organized creative, I was always looking at new and cool things for us to do. So a lot of our products were built on like alpha release software or platforms. And we were always kind of pushing the bleeding edge of technology. Because again, that was at a time where that was really necessary. There was so much going on in that decade, and new things were always coming up to take advantage of. So like when we hired, we never would hire somebody because they were certified in .NET or C# or whatever, because we always were coding in different environments and using different platforms and using different things. So we always hired based on people's problem solving skills. So we wanted was problem solvers who knew how to code. Because otherwise we would just get coders that didn't know how to solve problems. And we didn't have enough staff to tolerate that, so oddly enough, the quality of the code that we had was really, really great because we were solving problems, and that required like really paying attention at all levels. So almost everything we did in some way was either paired or mobbed because of that. Visualizations there lived up to that. So I remember you walked in to our entry hall, you turned left, and immediately there was the tactical board. What Alan, Riley, Liu, William, myself, Anne, etc. were doing on that day. Or at least, at that present time. There were always less tickets than there were people because we were always collaborating. In my office, there was a long-term strategic planning. In William's office, there was an architecture view. And on another board around the corner, there was a kind of a market view. Just things that we needed to know about what was going on in general. So that's a 5-minute long way of saying yes. And it was a religious experience for everybody because we just all had clarity about what was going on, which meant that at any given point in time, we all knew how we could help each other, help the code, help the product, help the customers, help the world. And that was just awesome. And it kills me now to see people that I know who are working in government or international nonprofits, NGOs that have lost track of the importance that their work has on the planet because they're so focused on their task that's in front of them. And that's a travesty. And the moment that you get that disconnect between mission and action is the moment you start getting really nasty quality problems. So just quickly, that's an excellent transition into this. I'm just going to do 2 minutes on this one because of that. Team charter, team working agreement, same thing. There's a million words for everything, but I'll just tell you that for me, a team charter is a collaboratively designed tool that does not come out looking like a report or a manifesto. But it comes out looking kind of like here's the kind of the cloud of what we think is our victory conditions, how we agree we're going to work with each other, how we're going to respect each other's professional boundaries, how we are going to agree on what the mission, the goals, the success, or not the success criteria, but the mission and the goals of the team are. How are we going to create that social structure that says, not, hey, dude, when you do this, it pisses me off. But, hey, when you do this, it doesn't respect the fact that we all got together and we said, this is how we're going to work. And that agreement about how you're going to help each other be better professionals, respect each other's professionalism, get stuff out, that is what process is. So process isn't the value stream. It isn't how tickets flow across a Kanban board. It isn't Scrum. Scrum isn't a process. Scrum is just a bunch of crap that you might do. Your process is how you on your team choose to interact with each other and with the customer and with the product. It is your social contract. So that's so important. It's so important that that's collaborative, and you can't do quality work until you understand this thing. Understand? No, we're done with that. All right. So this was a semi-quick set of answers to a bunch of questions. What I would tell everybody is that we cover lots and lots and lots of ways to solve these problems on Modus Institute. So underneath this video, there will be on YouTube, there will be a link to a Agile Lincoln discount from Modus Institute. Once you get into that subscription, you will have a global set of peers that are all thinking about these things all the time, and it's a really nice platform. It's so much fun to see people get in there and talk and help each other solve problems, and all of our classes are in there. So please do take advantage of that. I think that we will keep that discount up until the end of November. Other thing I'd like to just say to the people at Agile Lincoln was that was a really fun evening, and as a native Nebraskan myself, it's good to see a lot of good people doing hard work in the heartland. So, all right, thanks everybody. Bye bye.